Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Sergi. I'm the co-editor-in-chief of the journal Macromarketing. I'm affiliated with Virginia Tech. My title is Virginia Tech Real Estate Professor Emeritus at Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University in the United States. And also I hold another position as extraordinary professor at Northwest University in South Africa. So let me take you through this presentation to give you sort of a tips on how to publish in the Journal of Macromarketing. So we start out with a brief introduction of the Journal of Macromarketing. And it's a peer-reviewed journal. We publish it in quarterly. And the focus of the journal is that it examines social issues, meaning, again, it focuses on how marketing as an institution influences society and how society influences the marketing institution. So we're looking at the interface between society and marketing practice. So the journal, although it is a marketing journal, it interfaces with a bunch of other social science and business disciplines, including management, economics, sociology, political science, psychology, and history. So again, it's sort of an amalgam of a whole bunch of social, behavioral, business policy sciences. The journal provides current research linking insightful assessment of the external marketing landscape with a keen awareness of how marketing practice can be conducted to benefit a wide range of stakeholder groups. What are these groups? Customers, shareholders, distributors, communities, stewards of the environment, employees, society, etc. To give you a sort of a flavor of what macro marketing is, these are some of the prominent figures, examples of prominent figures in macro marketing. Here to the very left, we have Mark Peterson, and yes, he used to be the editor-in-chief of the journal. He wrote this fantastic book, which is called Sustainable Marketing. And that sort of give you a good flavor for those people who are essentially looking for a good book on macro marketing. That would be a good book. But these are other books too that are also written by prominent figures. So the second one is Jack Sheth. Again, he's one of what we call our marketing gurus. And he wrote this fantastic book, which is called Sustainability Edge. How to drive top line growth with triple bottom line thinking. Very interesting title, and again, quite a bit provocative. We also have Bob Lush or Robert Lush, who came up with this new way of thinking about marketing, which is called the service dominant logic. And again, we consider him as a macro marketing scholar. And last but not least, of course, would be Russ Belk. Russ Belk is a giant in our field, and one of his many books that he wrote was on consumption and consumption marketing. Again, he's a consumer behaviorist par excellence, and then again, he's part of our community. So it gives you an idea of, the examples of prominent figures in our discipline. Mark Peterson, who again, the former editor of the journal, came up with this acronym, which is called Queenship. And Queenship stands for a noble and regal quality, as if a queen right? The chess piece with most moves. And it captures the topics, at least the popular topics that are published in the journal Macro Marketing, representative of the entire field of macro marketing thought. That is, QU stands for quality of life, E stands for ethics, EN stands for the environment, S stands for systems, marketing systems, HI history, and P for poor countries. So these are prominent topics that are very well established in the field of macro marketing thought and scholarship. So, the goal of this presentation is to give you some tips on how to publish in the Journal of Macro Marketing. And of course, we welcome your submission, and that's, we want you to be successful in getting published in the journal. So these are tips to help you submit and, get published in the journal. The journal has been around for quite a while, so it's a very well-established journal. So the first step that you need to undertake would be identify research gaps on the topic, on some sort of topic in the Journal of Macro Marketing. And we'll talk about what these research gaps might be. Decide on type of research most suitable for the journal. And again, we'll talk about different types of research that are published in the journal. And then you use examples of past publication in the journal, Macro Marketing. Again, it's very helpful to try and get a flavor of what has been published in the past and use those examples as a template, as a sort of a model that would guide your own writing and submission in the journal. And then you evaluate your paper before submission. Again, a lot of people don't even bother to get their colleagues to evaluate the paper and possibly critique it and help copy edit it before submission. That's very important because whether it is, a lot of people, a lot of scholars, they become so engrossed with their own ideas that it's difficult to see problem areas. And of course, giving your paper to other colleagues to evaluate, again, would help you uncover those problem areas. And that would kind of save you a lot of time and energy because you don't want to get rejected, of course. And it could have been changed, problems that are easily identified and changed before submission. Okay, when you talk about research gaps, what are those research gaps? Research gaps is very important because, again, if you submit a paper in the Journal of Macro Marketing and you have not successfully identified a gap and say, okay, this is a gap and this is where I'm coming in and this is where my contribution lied to the macro marketing research literature, then it's going to be desk rejected. That's the most important thing that you need to properly position your paper in the context of the macro marketing literature. So how do you identify research gaps? Well, the research gaps, there are plenty of different types of gaps that would allow you to properly position your work in the context of the journal. Again, we talk about a knowledge gap, the evidence gap, practical knowledge gap, theoretical gap, population gap, methodological gap, contextual gap. What are these? Knowledge gap, of course, would be few. Let's say vulnerable consumers. We have all kinds of research on different types of vulnerable populations, from women to children to the disabled to you name it. But let's say, again, we don't have research on something like the LGBTQ community. Oh, that's a knowledge gap. Let's try and see if your research would contribute to filling that gap, that knowledge gap, right? Evidence gap. Let's say we've got quite a bit of speculation now, theorization in relation to a specific topic, let's say maybe sustainable consumption, but there isn't really uh, good evidence that would suggest maybe a relationship, the influence of sustainable consumption on maybe subjective well-being of consumers. Ah, well, this is where you come in and you say, I will conduct a study. I'll present a study and a study finding that will fill that what you call evidence gap. Practical knowledge gap, again, it would be something like, okay, well, we've got this knowledge out there, but there isn't a practical element in it. So again, my study is to translate this knowledge into practical policies or guidelines for a specific industry or sector in society. That may be a way to contribute to the journal and the macro marketing literature. Theoretical gap, again, a lot of empirical evidence, on a specific topic, but wait a minute, this isn't really a coherent, well-established theory that allows us to interpret and explain much of the evidence, and this is where your contribution may come in, and you say, okay, there's plenty of evidence, but I'm going to provide a theory that puts it all together and makes sense of it, so to speak, makes sense of the evidence. A population gap, well, we have, let's say, research on all kinds of population. Again, if we're dealing with vulnerable population, but we're missing a population such as maybe the elderly. I'm going to focus on the elderly and apply, a certain theoretical model that maybe has been applied to other populations to a particular population, such as the elderly, and this is where my contribution would make. A methodological gap, again, maybe there's quite a bit of qualitative research, maybe based on ethnography, dealing with a certain topic, again, dealing with maybe like a vulnerable consumer population. And here you come in, obviously, I'm going to take those qualitative findings and then maybe conduct quantitative research based on large-scale survey, or maybe using structural equations modeling to test the hypotheses that came out of the qualitative research. Another example. Contextual gap would be, well, an example would be there's so much research that has been conducted in Western countries, but would these apply to maybe Asian countries? So again, a different context, and you come up with the cases that it may or may not apply, and you make the case that it may have a different twist if you apply it in a different context, and this is where your contribution may lie. Okay, now if we think in terms of different types of research, there are all kinds of different studies or different submissions to the journal, and they take form in terms of literature reviews, empirical research, commentaries, the pedagogy, book reviews, theory building, decision making, or maybe a special section or a special issue. Let's focus on these different types of research and give you some tips on how to successfully publish in the journal using certain guidelines. Let's focus on literature reviews. Now, literature review is not just any kind of literature review. There's all kinds of protocols to develop a literature review paper that can be successfully published in the journal Macromarketing, or any kind of social science, behavioral science, policy science related journal. These are systematic reviews, meta-analysis, integrative reviews, critical reviews. A systematic review is a very specific guideline. There's a guideline to conduct a systematic review on a certain topic. Let's say maybe quality of life in the marketplace, or consumer happiness, for example. Again, a very set of guidelines that follow what you call a systematic review. Meta-analysis, on the other hand, focuses on quantifying and estimating effect sizes of certain relationships. Let's say, what's the relationship between those people who engage in sustainable consumption and experience eudaimonic well-being. Eudaimonic well-being is a form of well-being that certain people would experience. And estimating the size of that effect across different populations, different settings, and identifying moderators or mediators. That would be what you call a meta-analysis type of a literature review. Integrative review, on the other hand, is the kind of review that says, okay, there's the sort of disparate bodies of research dealing with a certain topic in macro marketing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and come up with some sort of a theoretical framework that would integrate much of that research into some sort of a coherent whole. A critical review, on the other hand, is you identify some very specific studies and you criticize them. You develop a critique, so to speak, to set the stage or set the ground for maybe a new theoretical framework. So that would be a critical review. The most typical submission is a research paper, and that research paper, tends to be empirically driven. And the typical format of a research paper would be something like introduction, literature review, theoretical model and hypotheses, methods, result, and discussion, which is sort of very traditional in the way we conduct research. But the catch is that when we evaluate empirical research papers, we tend to focus on three main criteria, and that is substantive issues, theoretical issues, and methodological issues. So the reviewer would, what they typically do is they ask the question, the substantive issue, which is, so what? How does your study finding help us? Help develop new policies, help develop new way of thinking, help populations, I'd say maybe subsistence population, those people are in poor countries or pockets in poverty-stricken areas in the industrialized countries. So what? How do you answer? Do your study findings address or help us develop recommendation strategies that would help people, that would create a semblance of quality of life, of justice, of a better economy, that kind of thing. Theoretical issues. Does your study findings help further develop a theoretical stream, a theory that is on its way to become well established? Does your study finding helps develop that theoretical stream? Methodological issues. Does your research is your research grounded on a good research design? Is it uh, is the are the data credible? Are the measures that are used, or maybe the experimental manipulation, if it involves an experiment, well grounded? Again, are the statistical analytic techniques rigorous enough? That kind of thing. So again, reviewers tend to focus on these three criteria in evaluating an empirical research paper, and answering those in a positive way, again, would help getting that submission published in the journal. Then we have commentaries. Commentaries, we have different types of commentaries. We have a theory development in brief, and we have a critique. Usually commentaries tend to be less than 5,000 words. And the focus is that if you want to develop an idea that would, be a foundation for maybe a different paper that builds on or establishes or what forms a theory, then you start out with a commentary. A commentary is a good way to do this. Or maybe it would be a critique of some other theories, or some other policy, or maybe a policy out there that has not done well to certain vulnerable consumers, possibly. So these would be commentaries, and of course we welcome those commentaries. Almost in every issues we have commentaries, and they are thought-provoking, and they tend to stimulate debate and a good discourse. Then we have a pedagogy section, and in the pedagogy section we have case studies and pedagogical methods and pedagogical material. What does that mean? So, we as marketing scholars, many of us tend to teach courses related to macro marketing. Macro marketing meaning marketing and society types of issues, or courses. It may be a course in business ethics, again, with the focus on marketing practice. Again, would be an example of a university level course. And again, those people who teach those types of courses need quite a bit of assistance in terms of study material. Study material as in case studies, or ways to get the students more engaged, whether maybe it would be a simulation type of a software, or all kinds of other pedagogical material. Let's say maybe you can share a good course, a detailed course syllabus that would help other instructors and marketing scholars develop their own courses and teach those types of courses, because my goodness, we certainly need more universities, more marketing departments to offer those types of courses. And therefore, again, any kind of help to scholars that may teach these courses are very welcome. Book reviews. We have all kinds of reviews. In almost every issue, we have book reviews, and there are different kinds of reviews. We have reviews of recent book publication that deals with a macro marketing topic, or possibly several books, that are that have a sort of common theme, and you review these, or possibly a media material. At one point, we had an interesting book review, actually a review of a film that deals with a macro marketing topic, and that was again interesting and very thought-provoking. How do we evaluate book reviews? And I'll call it book and media reviews. Again, not only a good description of the content of the book or the media uh, or the film or the media, whatever it is that is being reviewed. But of course, you have to go beyond that and make the link to the macro marketing literature. If you submit a a book review without, again, making the effort to link it to the body of research in macro marketing, then the book editor is likely to say, this is not acceptable. So again, the catch is to make a very specific link to the macro marketing literature. Theory building paper, that's probably the most difficult, but theory building papers are most welcome. And certainly we need more theories, better theories that would guide marketing thought and scholarship. So the content would be what? You start out by reviewing the existing theories and research on a certain topic. Again, maybe something like sustainable consumption. Then you critique these existing theories and research. So I identify holes, so to speak. And then you based on that, you articulate a new theory and you make the case that the new theory addresses the critique of the existing theories. And if you've done that successfully and in a very convincing manner, then voila, you have a nice publication in the Journal of Macro Marketing. Then we have special sections and special issues. So we make a distinction between special section, and a special section is when you have a very prominent scholar in macro marketing would come up with a position paper on a very important and trendy macro marketing topic with commentaries. So again, these commentaries are usually invited well-established scholars with expertise on the same topic. Then it is followed by a rejoinder by the author of the position paper. Let me give you an example of a most recent special section. We had a special section on AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI in marketing and business in general. So we had that, and then we invited a whole bunch of other scholars that have written on that same topic, and they came up with commentaries based on that position paper, and that was followed by a rejoinder, or what you might call a response, by the author of the position paper. So the position papers are invited papers by the JMK editors. So not anyone can submit a position paper, but you can suggest to the editors possibilities, and we can entertain those, and certainly we would welcome those ideas. Finally, we have special issues. We've got all kinds of special issues, and these are they're proposed by people, by marketing scholars. And we decide on whether the special issue is prominent enough, is trendy enough, is important enough. And if so, then we allow those people, those editors, or what you call special or guest editors, to lead those special issues. And we have all kinds of special issues in the journal. And you can look at the journal to see the multitude of special issues that we have. We have a whole bunch of them. The most recent one that actually in development right now is healthy aging. What are the kind of research that helps us identify strategies and interventions to make things a lot more healthy and doable for the elderly in navigating a very complex marketplace. Take, for example, healthcare. There's all kinds of issues in healthcare. How do you investigate um, investigate all the hurdles, all the obstacles that the elderly run into, for example, in terms of healthcare, and how do the elderly might be able to overcome these hurdles. That would be again an example of a special issue. So if you have ideas for special issues, don't hesitate to contact us. And we've got some very specific guidelines that may help you develop those special issues. And if they're good ideas, then we can invite you to become the guest editor of that particular topic, or very particular what you call special issue. And that's it. That's hopefully that gave you some tips on how to publish in our journal. And if you like anyway a copy of this presentation, don't hesitate to contact me. Again, my surname is Sergi, Joe Sergi. So I go by my last name in terms of the email, and it's at VT. VT stands for Virginia Tech .edu. So again, that's easy to remember. And I'll be more than happy to communicate with you or send you these slides, or if you have any other questions, concerns, or what have you. Again, don't hesitate to contact me. On that note, I will close, and I hope that this was helpful to you. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.